I'm here. And our regularly scheduled work session for facilities is started, and we're going to go to 6:15. We're just going to kind of roll through our agenda. And since we do have a quorum, we're going to go ahead and I'll just ask, I can't see, but I don't know that we have any public comment. Do we have members of the public here? Tricia, that you can see?
We do, but I don't see anyone for
raising a hand. This is the time if the public has anything, anybody has any comments that they want to share, feel free, but if not, we'll keep moving on. And we're fairly free ranging here, so if anyone has anything they'd want to add as we go through our topics, feel free to raise a hand. This is an opportunity to ask architects and construction managers good questions, and we appreciate that. Sean, the transcripts are what they are as far as minutes, and so we'll approve those. Just before we get into phase one, and Cindy, I did see that there is a custodial and ground workers on-site interviews every Thursday. Our HR department put that out, so I guess we still need custodial and ground workers to tend to our facilities. So we can highlight that again in the weeks to come, but I'm get an idea of how long that's going to go on. But an update on that at some point would be great as well. And I think Kelly is entering the waiting room, and if we can get her in, then let's go ahead, Cindy, with the monthly progress report update.
Okay, thanks everyone. Glad to be with everyone again this month and tonight. It's much darker than it was last meeting with the time change. Winter is approaching for sure. Real quick, we'll start with Beverly J. Martin and the elevator upgrade project. We have actually started with the elevator contractor doing their work. We had done some prep work, but he actually started a week and a half ago now, I believe. And we do have a few more weeks of installation by him and the other prime contractors that are part of phase one that we had do some of the ancillary work. They've been working in conjunction with him on things that they need. So we're hoping here shortly we'll be able to get that inspected and back in service without any issue. So the electrician has been working alongside everyone who needs power. The GC is started today putting in the smoke curtains, which is a new SED requirement. It is a safety, a life safety element that goes in front of the elevator doors to keep smoke from infiltrating the shaft in case of a fire. And the mechanical contractor has received their air conditioning unit for the equipment room, and that installation is ongoing. Any questions on that? Bell Sherman Annex, all the work has been completed now, and we're pending a substantial completion inspection date. We're working with Tetra Tech to get that scheduled so we can get any outstanding items completed with a punch list. Transportation, all that work has been completed as well, and we have 2 new punch lists that were issued out for the mechanical contractor. That work is being scheduled and is ongoing. The stadium work is substantially complete there. We did have a meeting with the site contractor and their subcontractor for the stamped imprinted asphalt I area that is unacceptable and has been rejected, to come up with a plan and approach of how to reinstall that. Basically, it's going to require the entire area to be removed by milling the asphalt, re-putting down top coat, and then re-stamping. There isn't any way to fix what's there, unfortunately. So we're working with the site contractor to determine scheduling for that. Obviously, plants are closing, so this is going to be a warranty issue that'll occur next spring.
So Cindy, what's the basic issue there?
So a lot. Now there's a lot wrong with it, Rob. Things don't align. The actual logo, not the eye part, but I'm going to call it honeycombing that is around the eye as a background. Those vinyl pieces that were put down after the asphalt was imprinted with the pattern, they're starting to peel up. Things aren't aligned, they're skewed. It's just really bad. So even though it was pointed out to them as they were installing, they continued, and here we are. So on their dime, unfortunately, they will have to repair and replace. At the high school area C, the pool, we do have tile going in. It's a big announcement, right? We're about 10 to 15% started in the shallow end. Obviously no grout's gone in yet, but they're working shallow end to deep. We have another 4 to 5 weeks, I think, for the tile to be done and the grout to be put in. We're still anticipating a startup in January. We did today get the water sampling report that Welliver did on the domestic water that we're going to use to fill the pool. So we know from Watson Pools what chemical treatment needs to be done to the domestic water to make that acceptable for the pool. So we've shared that with Paul so that he can get the chemicals rounded up and ready for when the pool is filled and needs to be started up.
So none of the tiles on the 15% that's been up, they haven't fallen off yet, right?
Have not heard that they have, Rob.
Okay, all right. Sorry, Cindy, go ahead.
No, and we are doing daily pull tests, I believe, or at least random pull tests as the specifications require. And they've all been showing up good. So Area K, Culp Auditorium, work is continuing in there. We've started to put up some ceiling clouds, we call them, which are some the way that we put up hard ceilings and things like that up in there to help deflect and attenuate the sound in there so that it's what it should be for a space like that. We've also completed the majority of the ductwork installation and insulation on that. Electrical rough-in has been proceeding as walls were being put up. So that's continuing to proceed. We're about 80% with all of that wall rough-in. And looking to, we're a little behind, but we should be pretty close to our end date. Any questions about the high school then? Okay. At Boynton, we had reported previously the punch list was conducted by Tetra Tech on the flooring that was done inside, and there were some deficiencies. Those deficiencies have been addressed, and that work has been completed. At the varsity baseball field, we are told that at the end of this week, the fencing subcontractor is scheduled to be back to complete their work, and asphalt for the little patch that has to be done in the tie-in for the water line in the walk path between Boynton and the high school. That's scheduled to be done Thursday or Friday this week as well, weather permitting. As I said earlier, the plants are closing, so Edger is trying to get all of their miscellaneous paving cleaned up for the end of the year.
And regarding the baseball field, that's all new, rolled out solid turf. Certainly there's been a great opportunity for that grass to grow well. So really should be looking at being able to use that field, obviously going through the process, but should be able to play baseball, I would think, in the spring at some point, correct? That would be an anticipation that we would have, I believe.
Right. Yeah, it has established very well, Rob, and we've already conducted the 5 mowings that were required for per spec. And so, yeah, it established very well with the weather we had this fall, and hopefully comes back robustly in the spring as well.
Excellent.
Cuga Heights, We are still missing a piece of glazing for the new secure entry that was broken when it was received originally. At this point, we're still waiting for it, but it is a 10 to 12 week lead time. So we're still in that window from when it was reordered in late August, unfortunately, and we do not have a delivery date at this time from the supplier. Otherwise, the work there is substantially complete pending that, and glazing that needs to go in the transaction window, the specified glazing that goes in the transaction window. There's some there currently, but again, we're waiting for that. All glass is sort of delayed this year. At Fall Creek, we did get the correct glazing installed in that transaction window, which pretty much cleaned up that issue. We are still working with Tetra Tech on access control questions and any potential hardware changes that may need to be done for the front entrance and the side door. At Northeast Elementary, all the work is done and substantial completion lists have been issued to the contractors for completion. Any questions on this year's elementary school secure entries? Okay. High school roof replacement. We have 2 pending items for this year's work. The roofer needs to get 1 ladder installed at upper area A to access the roof. They had a steel contractor installer scheduled and their crew was taken ill. We're not sure what with. So they're working with another installer to get that scheduled now that the first crew is unavailable. And the second item is a receptacle that needs to get raised due to the new roof height. We just need the roofer and the electrician there at the same time. And we're coordinating that to be done at the same time the ladder is installed. Any questions on this year's roof work?
No questions there, but it should be shared that there is a meeting 8:30 on Thursday to talk about, well, I guess that we can talk about it later, but well, however, Chris and everybody wants to talk about that, but sharing with the team here that they're well, prices have gone up, and so we're going to have to deal with some questions regarding filling contracts and getting more roof done, right? Anybody that wants to speak to that can certainly shout out.
I think that's a great summary of what we're going to talk about on Thursday morning, Rob.
I would agree.
Well, there you go. Glad I summarized. So
Thank you.
But, no real concrete things to share, but know that a bit of an inkling of as we go through contracts and if prices continue to be what they are and or shortages are what they are, expect some push and pull with our suppliers and contractors as we continue to move forward. So,
right.
All right.
One additional piece is that we'll probably go into executive session during a facilities meeting in December.
Yes. Thanks, Amanda.
You guys have do you have an estimate at least, Cindy and Chris? We talking hundreds of thousands? We talking 50,000? What are we looking at?
We'll talk about it, I think, in December.
Yeah.
Okay, Eldred, is that all right?
I'm sorry, say it again.
I think we'll talk about it in December once we get more details and we iron out what pathway we want to take with if it ends up being a breach of contract. Okay.
Got it.
Thanks.
Okay. The final piece of information I just wanted to share with everyone is this Thursday, we are taking bids for the middle school temperature control upgrades. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now, and it is finally coming to fruition. We have great bidder participation, plan holders. We have, I believe, 7 general contractors for about a $200,000 contract. We have 5 electricians for a $55,000 contract, and we have 5 mechanical contractors for a $650,000 contract. So, you know, they're not the big flashy contracts that are available, but it shows that the contractor community is looking for work to carry them through the winter, and hopefully that bodes well for us in our numbers on Thursday. So more to follow on that. We do have a plan to hopefully be able to present a letter of recommendation to the district for award at Tuesday night's board meeting as well for those contracts in an effort to expedite contract award so that we can potentially do some work over Christmas break as far as infrastructure and running wires and things like that at that time. So we can get a head start on it before kids are back in January. Any questions on that? Okay, that's all I had for this evening. Anyone have any questions in particular of anything else that we did not discuss tonight?
We're all good?
Okay. Okay.
Lots of, thank you, Cindy. And let's just go to phase 2. And is that you, Chris?
Sure, I'll pick up. Thanks, Cindy, and thanks, Rob. Good to see everyone this evening. So there are a number of projects that we have submitted to the State Education Department and for which we are waiting on approval. Phase 2 is one of those. We anticipate it imminently. We do have the technical approvals from the architectural and the engineering departments there. We're just waiting for the project manager there to resolve the paperwork and just give us that final approval. So we're looking forward to getting that, like I said, any time now, and then we'll be ready to get that project out to bid as well. Any questions about phase 2? We also have some much smaller projects in the queue at SED. There's a capital outlay project at Caroline, which includes some sort of typical treatment that we're going around the district, removing those hard gymnasium partitions and doing some improvements there in gymnasiums. So we have that one in for SED, and we'll get that back hopefully relatively soon as well in order to start that project right around the end of school. The next capital outlay project we have slated for South Hill, and we will be meeting with them next week to get into some of the details on that, but it's a very similar scope. And that the financing for that project will be approved with any luck with your budget that is voted on in May, and then we'll get going on that project. There is a Caroline Pavilion project as well that we've done some documents for and have submitted that to the State Education Department, as that also requires a building permit. So that's also awaiting their review and approval, so we can get that that project done come the spring at this point. And then we get into some discussions that we've had on phase 3. We've talked about them before. Any questions on any of those projects that are currently at the state?
Sean, Sean Eldred, others, anything about phase 2? Timing wise, Chris, we're still on track, at least for timing, coming back from state ed. Still going to be the timeline for bidding and awarding of contracts as expected. I guess that would be the main question.
Yes, I think if we get out to bid this winter, that'll be a good position for starting construction next, spring, summer. I think it looked like Eldred was going to ask a question as well.
Yep, just about the pavilion, Chris. I'm assuming that's associated with our outdoor education plans.
Yeah, Kristen Herman advanced that project, and with a local grant, as well as a lot of interest from the school itself to flesh out that curriculum there. So yeah, we had to jump through the hoops of getting a building permit for it to stay on the right side of that.
Have any of the other schools that we know of, Rob or Sean, asked for something similar?
Eldred, I can speak to that if that's okay, everybody. I actually walked the campus at Enfield Definitely Keith is sort of dreaming big in terms of the possibility of having a pavilion where they can continue even some of the farm to table work and some of that ag school field that they're trying to build out there, which is really fantastic. There are other buildings that I think have thought about it. They haven't approached us officially yet, but you know how this goes, right? When it goes in one location and people see it and they see sort of, you know, the utility of it, they'll start to analyze the campus space. So some buildings, I imagine, due to the size of their campus, it will make sense for them to walk that path. For others, because either they're in a city block or they have real challenges around the green space that they have, I don't know if this would be a one size fits all response for outdoor learning.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Amanda. Amanda, Caroline Pavilion was a separate item on the agenda. I mean, have we basically addressed what you need, or?
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, and again, you know, I think that got kickstarted because just investment in that school and what it mattered, you know, to the young people that went there. And so it's a really exciting project. So the district is partnering to sort of make the funding that is required whole. Right. So that got us there. That got us well on the way to building it. But architecture costs and the remaining costs for materials and the work, you know, force that's needed, we're covering that. So Eldred, that's another key point too. Mary is the master grant writer and relationship builder around these things and leading all the outdoor ed pieces. So I just want to take a moment to give kudos to Mary for helping principals think in this manner. And move these things forward. So that's part of Mary's, you know, project as well. I just help with the money. Mary helps with the vision.
Just not to dwell on it, but site prep, you know, well, Enfield, other Carolina, when in doubt, it's wet. You know, there's how much work we have to do to prepare a site to put up essentially a pole building. Do we have an idea of the extent of the work?
Well, I'll jump in on that. The location, you know, it's out of, there's the creek that runs in the back there, and we're staying out of the floodplains for the location of that. We did look at various locations that might go. So trying to pick a spot that will stay dry. The floor of that area is just going to be like the earth. There's not a concrete slab or anything there, so there will be some work just to do some relatively modest foundations for that structure, and then erect it. Unfortunately, this is often an exercise in patience. You know, when all the great work that went into leading up to this, and all the enthusiasm to, you know, oh, we're gonna get it built, you know, summer of 2021. So I had to come in and kind of throw the wet blanket on it and say, well, we kind of need a building permit. So we're working through the process, and it's moving forward.
So you were the downer, Chris. All right. So
yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. The slap of reality into it will be great when it's done, Chris, right? And it's going to be done right because architects were involved, right?
Well, it will be done legally. I think that's
okay,
all, you know. So you know, Amanda brought up the discussions around Enfield. So that's great to be you know, thinking about it now and planning it so that we can, you know, sort of get ahead of the process, because we'll certainly need to look at some issues there, including potentially Department of Health approvals, you know, for food. It's a great program and great ideas out there. So we're excited to see how that develops.
So speaking of Enfield, and I know it will be coming up as we talk about phase 3, for those of us who are not able to make the OCEM meetings, when are we going to have some a little bit more specific conversations and dialogue about the actual plans that we're looking at?
Yeah, so for phase 3, the good segue. Thanks, Sean. We are starting to get going on what we're calling phase 3A, which is replacement of the roof at Enfield. It's some of the more nuts and bolts stuff that we can get done a little quicker. It's a replacement of the roof at Enfield, including some, some aesthetic improvements at the front entrance there at Enfield, and replacement of the windows at BJM. So that's phase 3A, nuts and bolts stuff. Phase 3B, and we're, there's not a whole lot, that is exciting to show on that, but we're happy to share as that develops and some of the relatively few design decisions to be made in that scope of work. Phase 3B, which includes the STEM renovation at the high school, is something that we definitely will have conversations about with regard to the development of the plans there. We're not at that point yet. We did have a walkthrough recently. We do have that project pretty much scoped. We're kind of fine tuning a couple of the items for that sort of final approval, and then we'll dive into the design process, and that's where we'll start to, generate some of the images similar to what we looked at South Hill for that, for that small addition and those kinds of things, and have those sort of conversations and develop that out. But generally, a renovation of those 4 workhorse classrooms, for your STEM program are included, as well as the addition of a space in that courtyard in Area E. So we will be diving into that very soon. Rob asked about scheduling, I think, as well, to kind of go back. The phase 2, like I said, we're looking to bid that, as soon as we get approval from the state to start that construction in the spring, summer of 22. And that will also go to some extent through the year in certain areas. And campus has done a lot of work with your different building principals and leaders and all the administration to coordinate the phasing of that construction project, because it's a good amount of work. It also extends into the summer of 2023 as well. So that's a 2-summer project with, some in between. So a lot of that is at the middle schools, where we're trying to do a lot of work with as minimal disruption as possible. The couple of the capital outlay projects will be happening this summer and into next fall a little bit. The Caroline Pavilion we talked about for this summer. Phase 3A, which is the roof and the windows. We anticipate the construction of that starting in the spring of 2023. So we need to do the design work. We need to get it into the state. That will set us up actually for a good bid schedule. There's a lot of, you've probably heard the word volatility way too much in the last few months, and we're definitely experiencing that when we go to bid projects and when we go to try to procure materials, whether it's roofing or mechanical equipment or anything with a chip in it or door hardware. So, a lot of supply chain issues and raw material issues that we're looking at. And so bidding that project early, and maybe we can get out early fall or maybe even the summer, that we'll set that project up well for the kind of lead times that we're starting to see that are really creeping up before the supply chain can kind of catch up with producing aluminum extrusions for windows and the glass that we heard Cindy talk about. So that's actually a good thing and a good schedule that we're on at this point. Phase 3B we anticipate would start the following year. So we would start design now. That would be a relatively longer design process because we're going to be, kind of ripping apart a chunk of Ithaca High School and reprogramming some things and, exploring what that addition can add to the STEM program. So there's a bit to, there's some good involvement there and some development of that project that needs some time to happen. So we'll design that through, most of 2022, get that into the state. And then, that's a relatively unpredictable process, especially when you're a year out, because the state review times do fluctuate rather dramatically from 10 or 12 weeks up to, you know, low 40s of weeks. So like approaching a year for approval is not unheard of. So we can get ahead of that and then get that out at a good bid time to start that construction in the spring of 2024. There are one or two other, you know, smaller items, like there's a retaining wall at Cayuga Heights that we're looking at a small project to address that, and we'll be reviewing. I'm sorry, that's Northeast. As well, we're looking at some boiler work at Bell Sherman. So a couple of these smaller projects that are popping up here and there that we're trying to get on top of as quickly as they develop.
And Chris, remind me which phase the climate control and AC at the high school was going to be a part of.
Thanks. That's the other big chunk of phase 3B. So that will be extending the lake source cooling that already serves portions, actually a good portion of Ithaca High School already. And we'll be extending that to areas G and H. And we recently had a good conversation with some of your maintainers and, you know, explaining the HVAC scope to get their feedback, just be sure that we're moving forward in a good direction as far as their experience goes, you know, because sometimes we hear about, you know, this air handler or that air handler that, you know, that we can incorporate as we hear, because the scope at this point, you know, allows for a little bit of adjustment if we hear something, although it's pretty well set at this point. We'll be diving into that in a little more detailed review during OACM just to confirm that final scope on that project. But yeah, that's a fair amount of mechanical work at that building. We'll also be replacing various unit ventilators, air handlers, and other mechanical equipment due to age. Just generally, you know, as it's aging out, it's served its useful life. It's been maintained to the extent that it, you know, on paper, a lot of it looks, you know, pretty old, but it's still working. So that's a testament to your maintenance over time, but time to replace some of that equipment. And that allows us to integrate the cooling into some of that replaced equipment as well in a relatively cost-effective way.
Feel free to weigh in, Sean. And Chris and Amanda, you know, part of our obligation is make sure the public knows what's going to be happening this next summer, spring, you know, for phase 2. Is the plan, once we get final approval on phase 2, to, I think the idea is to have Chris and others and anyone come to a full board meeting and really inform the rest of the board and the community, and at least get it on the record of coming to a school near you, X is going to happen, right? So is that planned for like early January at this point, probably, or where are we looking at December for that?
Rob, I don't know if I could find the schedule of the board meeting topics at the ready, but I do know that was discussed, and it is either December or January. And I'm so sorry, I don't know if I can get to that, my hands on that quickly. But you know, I think to your point, right, showing things like where we are in terms of the, you know, what we submitted to state ed, we've always done that, and then we tell them again right before, you know, the summer occurs. So absolutely that will happen in the winter and then again in the late spring.
Okay. Yeah, it's sometimes we forget what's on the schedule, and oh, I forgot that we're going to do that work as well. But the big, obviously the biggies are South Hill and LECS new entryways there, and certainly Boynton and DeWitt are both getting fairly extensive work done on the interior and new entranceways there, correct? And so it's
Bell Sherman's getting a tremendous amount of work done out on the outside.
right, the
So
exterior,
grading.
right?
Yeah.
So again, just trying to make sure that as you start going down the list, there significant population of the student population is going to see something happening in their school, and obviously their parents and the community. So spreading it around as we like to do. And is the heat pump out at Enfield, is that phase 2?
Yes, that is phase 2. Yeah,
Right,
so that's one of the exciting sustainability pieces, really, of your program.
Again, highlighting that. You see, even I'm having trouble trying to remember where and when are we doing this project. So I would certainly look forward to a report in December to the full board, that just to keep folks in the loop, and so they know what you all and we all have been working on, and what to expect, and it'll be great when it's done. So what else do you have for us, Sean? What questions do you have, Eldred?
I'm just looking for an update. We had a conversation a couple months ago, and I know we were going to do some research to look at various school communities, but if we have any more additional information about signs outside, if we can get an update on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, we had a meeting just this very day with Toth Sports, who is a rep for Daktronics, which is a manufacturer of the of scoreboards and the sign that you have at DeWitt that was recently installed. So in phase 2, we've integrated replacement of the Moresco Field scoreboard, right? So that will start happening next summer. Also included in the scope of phase 2 are power, basically the electrical infrastructure for signs at South Hill and Enfield. Okay, so the capital project incorporates getting the power out there, and the district will enter into a cooperative service agreement, like a state contract with Toth Sports, to provide message boards for those 2 schools that are basically the same as DeWitt, as far as the size and the pixel spacing and all those details.
So in terms of other buildings, what's the update at Boynton? It's not something that we're going to be looking at this point in time, and I know I get some of the more local neighborhood schools may not want a sign like that, but just trying to get a sense of where we're at with other schools.
Boynton, I believe, is not in the scope. We did look at a location for that out near the road, out near Cayuga Street, near where the existing sign is. So I could probably verify that, whether that's in the plan. I don't think we included that in the plan. I think we focused on South Hill and Enfield as the buildings that were to incorporate that at this time.
Boynton was certainly discussed, right, as one obvious addition, right, Amanda? I think.
I'm trying to think if we talked about the Boynton sign. I don't know if we talked about it being attached to the HVAC project or not. Did we? Is that what you're referring to, Rob?
Well, no, I think not attached to that project. No, it was more a matter of there's a sign that is there now, and really the placement would be essentially where it is now.
Yeah.
Right, and that, okay, as part of this conversation, we should have, upgrade Boynton sign. So from our standpoint is, it should be on the list somewhere.
Right. So I think part of the conversation is attaching some of the, and so I'm sorry, like I pause sometimes because we have so many different meetings about so many different things. I'm just trying to catalog in my brain. My recollection is that we're going to try to attach the signs to Enfield and South Hill. And that, Rob, I think when we budgeted the sign in the general fund for Ithaca High School, we're going to keep that as a line item, but move it to other buildings along with trying to incorporate some of them in the capital project. And Boynton may have been the one we discussed for that. And I don't know if we actually decided on which building that would be, but we're not going to remove that from the general fund unless we're in total dire straits, right? And because Chris, we didn't need, as long as there's electric out there and cabling out there, you can, like with the DeWitt sign, we didn't need to go through state ed and get approval. It was just, I mean, we had power to it, right? I guess I'm checking in with you, Chris, to make sure that this is not bigger than we need to make it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the drawings to refresh my own memory because there's signs everywhere. But yeah, that I believe does not require building permits. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that you could trench the power out there. Communication happens wirelessly, and that installation can happen under state contract, as you have done at DeWitt.
So I think Boynton could most definitely for next year. It's just a matter of recoding that budget line, right, with whatever escalation we need for the new year and steel costs, and I hear conduits going up, all those things, right? Move that to a new line.
Well, right, Amanda. I mean, there was the old improved sign at the high school that suddenly seemed to morph into something new, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. I mean, kind of driving.
We budgeted for that. That's
that
budget
looks,
dollars going to, right, to really good use. And those are the ones that people see, right? It's like, yeah, that was a line item. We actually purchased it. We installed it, and there it is. And now we can see wonderful messaging for our community, which is great.
And I think, Sean, I think we actually talked about, better signage on the, Lake Street side by the board bit mall, by the administration building. I don't know that we need to have a real expensive, come see Sean tonight at the board meeting, right? I don't think we need that on Lake Street, but certainly I would think Boyne would be a priority to upgrade. And then we can figure out Lake Street and all that at some point, but
Rob, if we do go down that path, let me know so I can update my headshot as well. So I'll keep you posted.
There you go. I mean, Dr. Brown did, Sean. So, what the heck? Yeah. Some of us have more gray hair than we used to, Amanda, before we started getting involved with the school district. Or maybe it's just time and age, Amanda. I'm not sure.
Yes, Rob, I agree.
Okay. Basically, but yeah, we talked about signs, and I think, yeah, it's not everything needs to go to state ed. We don't have to make a monstrosity of a foundation for a sign. We understand that the new stadium scoreboard certainly is much larger and for good reason, and needs serious foundation work, which is being accounted for, and that will all come together next summer, I believe. So that's different than signage in front of the various buildings. And it sounds like we can do some of these as a part, South Hill, Enfield, et cetera. And the others we'll just keep plugging away at, right? So, and BGM, what can we do on BGM in a thoughtful way to provide signage there? That's part of a conversation, Sean, that there's not a solution there that's going to look like other signs in front of Enfield or South Hill, right? So it's something different.
Yeah, one thing that principals have said time and again that are really in those smaller neighborhoods, right, with housing across the street is, number one, getting neighborhood feedback, and then number two, discussing the ability to be able to dim those signs or maybe even turn them off on a schedule.
And right, and Caroline's in the loop as well, correct? That's an old sign out there, right? Yeah. So And obviously no issues out there with, right, they can have a regular sign like Enfield and others. So we'll figure it all out.
I have a
What
question
else?
before we
Go ahead, Dee.
leave these topics. Can somebody remind me which phase the proposed expansion of the playground, including that basketball court? Is that still envisioned? Is that in plan? Is that in phase 3? Is that a phase 3 project? I haven't heard about it yet in these
Which
conversations.
building? Which building? Are you talking about
LA,
Bell
I'm
Sherman
sorry,
or
LACS.
LACS,
Yeah.
well, LACS and Bell Sherman, so Chris can speak to that. Those are both phase 2.
That's right. Phase 2. So yeah, that includes both the Bell Sherman and the Bell Sherman Annex. So behind the annex, there's some improvements to that asphalt area and that basketball court back there. And then at LACS, yeah, there's that retaining walls and construction of that new basketball court at LACS, sort of downhill from the school. Yeah, that's
So
all
we'll be
phase 2.
breaking ground for those possibly in the spring as well?
I would have to check the phasing that Cindy's popping in here, so
Yeah,
she can.
I can mention that. LACS does start right after school is out this coming summer. And the Bell Shermans are the summer of 2023. We have a lot of work that we're going to start in the spring of 2022 with LACS and South Hill. So to make sure that the contractors could meet the schedule and be able to conduct their work in a timely manner before school reopens, we kind of had to split them up a little bit between the 2 years. So the intention is that by the time school comes back into session in September of 2022, LACSs will be complete and available for use.
Eldred, your question is partially answered, because I believe you are probably under the impression that we are doing a basketball court and a playground at LACS. Is that correct? Is that the question you're asking? Right, and that is not the final plans that were submitted for SED approval.
So what worked? Just a court, just a hoop?
There's the court. There was some discussions back and forth about, as you know, that land swap that the city of Ithaca was going to realign that intersection. But we haven't incorporated any of that in the capital project planning. There was at one point also inclusion of a small element down at one of the playgrounds at LACS, and I can confirm whether that is still in the scope.
Yeah, I'm only thinking about the stuff that would physically fit inside the square, if you will, inside LACS. I know that dream about the triangle was it was not one I was contemplating having access to anytime soon. So I was thinking about the stuff inside the square, so to speak.
Eldred, I think some of the conversation too that was challenging for us, and the reason why we were, well, first of all, not having a playground for little kiddos where middle schoolers and high schoolers are hanging out throughout the day, that could be separate up by that triangle area. We're relying on the city to get that work done and actually create green space there, number one. Number two, if the district is going to fund the playground, I think we were pretty clear through all of it, it would not get state aid because it actually is not a building that serves pre-K through 5. And so to have a playground that would serve children that are not middle or high school aged, and even playgrounds for middle school, it's sometimes a little tricky sometimes. You just have to, we would just have to be aware of that, and that's fine. That would be a give, to the community, of course. But we just want to make sure that I think that identified piece of land felt better for sort of the separation of the play and then the high school, middle school play. But that's my recollection of our meetings that we had about it.
I need to be recollected, so thanks.
Yeah, and just looking at the drawing again, I'm seeing and kind of recollecting as well that in discussions with Deb Patak and others through the process, it was determined that the basketball court was much more useful and sort of more age appropriate than looking at replacement of sort of some of the younger age play structures out there. So there is not at this point included in the scope of work any playground like equipment replacement based on feedback that we got from the school.
Right, Chris, and just in my memory, there was certainly the flat area for the basketball court and the retaining wall. Was there not also handicap access to go down around and be an area down below that was really outdoor, just space, correct? It's not just a court, it's really redoing that side hill, right?
Well, yeah, there are accessibility improvements for sure that happen along that whole side of the building. So that starts up at the end of the parking lot, the east end of the parking lot. Sorry, the north end of the parking lot that comes down between the parking lot and the pavilion, connects into some of the existing walkways, connects into importantly into the level of the lower part of that building. So you've now have accessibility sort of throughout the site to both levels of that building, as well as an accessible route down to the basketball court.
And lighting, lots of lighting, because it is so dark on both the parking lot, that playground, the green space where the amphitheater is, like, all, you know, there's going to be lighting throughout all of that as well.
I'm going to continue to request that we not completely give up on this concept or idea. One is being just good stewards of the community. The fact that we have asked the community to invest a significant amount of money in our capital projects, and it is a part of our Ithaca City School District community that could benefit greatly from making sure that young folks have additional things to do that would keep them busy. And especially if we're paying attention to anything in the news as we have for the past, not just week, but the past couple of weeks, if not months, the more that we can provide for young people to have access to, the better I think it is for everybody involved. So I understand the idea about funding. I understand the idea about it's a secondary school, but part of it is a little bit of miscommunication between some folks that were there to first go through the walkthrough and what eventually got submitted. Even though I understand that it's feedback from the school community, but I'm not wanting or willing at this point in time to completely forego the possibility of doing something in addition on that piece of property.
Well, we stand ready to follow direction on as far as what play improvements or other exterior improvements want to be made. I will say we're not removing the stuff that's existing there. So those play structures, there's swings down near the tennis courts. Those will remain. So there's still those opportunities.
All right, thanks for that update. Appreciate it. And I'm with Sean. More for the kiddos, the merrier.
Amanda, others, Dr. Brown, or anyone else? Do we have anything else that we want to talk about tonight?
Rob, I think you mentioned sort of the interviews, and Dan, I don't think, I think he was probably catching up on many emails and getting here, and so Dan, I did text him just so you know, and we can give just a simple update, Dan, just sort of on maybe like the process and the thinking behind the interviews, and even if you don't have information yet about how successful they are or not, that's fine, but just
Sure.
if you could just update folks, that would be great.
Yeah, no, we've been working with Gladira. Gladira has been fantastic, and we put some radio ads out for drop-in custodial and grounds interviews on Thursday from 1 to 3, and Ken's been helping us with, Ken's been there and I've been there and Bob's been there. And so, we've had at least a number of drop-ins. So we're excited to start, getting them, having them fill out their applications and walking them through the process. But also Gladira has been fabulous in figuring out how we can also partner with other community groups as well, and taking our show on the road to GIAC and possibly other places to do some recruiting for some of our openings in custodial and grounds at this time. So we're excited. We are getting some bites, and we hope to update the board with some new hires at some point in the near future. And Bob, let me know if I left anything out or if there's anything you wanted to add as well to that.
No. Well, I mean, we did get a couple candidates too from the job fair at the mall, and they're working their way through the state ed bureaucracy. So I'm hoping we'll have, a full handful of folks starting up here really soon.
No, I appreciate that. Obviously, it's an issue. I did hear one interesting thought that was put out there for high schoolers. For those who wanted an after-school job, to why not go ahead and get paid to. There's a job for you. Go ahead and get paid to do some groundwork or do custodial work at good pay and good experience, and part of taking care of your school by getting paid for it. It's kids are old enough to work, right? And yes, they can go work about anywhere because everyone's starved for employees, but to be able to stay on site and perhaps get a ride home later, get 2 or 3 hours, a couple hours of work and make some money and then go home. I don't know. It's actually seemed like a halfway decent idea. And we do see younger and younger folks working in restaurants that we didn't think, are you really old enough to work here? But everyone's pretty desperate. But anytime someone who, not playing a sport or not in season, can you come help clean up? And I don't know that it's a bad thing. And I'm not sure is there a law against that? Can't you hire like who you want to?
It's complicated, right, Bob?
No, we're working on it, and Dan's really actually taken the lead on this. It was we're coordinating with the union. There are a lot of issues, there's a lot of laws around what kids can do, what they can operate in terms of machinery and stuff like that. And we also want to pick the right people for them to be with, to help mentor them through it. So those are the challenges we're working through. But I think ultimately we all love the idea.
No, exactly. Appreciate it. And but yeah, it'd be great if it was possible. And we have a few more minutes. Obviously, we have a meeting at 6:15. Still working with the consultants regarding our custodial processes and maintenance and all that. Any update on that initiative, or just a little more color on where we are going with that and what we expect from that?
Amanda, would you like me to say a few words about some of our recent meetings, sort of looping Ken in on the facility evaluations?
Great.
Yeah, so,
that was great. Thanks.
So, as you may remember, Tetra Tech performed a facility evaluation district-wide. So we have that, sort of laundry list, right, of the nuts and bolts, mostly items that we've observed on our visual inspections and walkthroughs, as well as from interviews with staff, right? So most of that was from Paul Alexander and trying to flesh out some of the things that you can't necessarily see by walking through a building, like, this HVAC unit doesn't, produce as much cooling as we think it should, for example, right? That's not necessarily the kind of thing you can just see. So we try to collect all those items. And I, like I said, performed a review with Paul. So we're looping back now that Ken and his group is involved, because some of those items, when we go through and prioritize those, we say, okay, some of these can be performed by district staff. They're minor items. They're, put an insulation kit under this handicap sink to protect the hot water from scalding someone's leg, for example. It's relatively minor work that, might not make sense to pay a contractor to do, right? So ICSD has staff to be able to address some of those things. So having designated some of those items, we're now going kind of back through it again with Ken to review that with him as part of getting him up to speed and kind of confirming the thinking around the scope of what some of those just really nitty gritty nuts and bolts kinds of things here and there that are suggested to be either performed by district staff, or that the district would issue maintenance contracts for example, like cleaning out stormwater structures that collect silt in them over time. It's just basic, sort of ongoing maintenance stuff that needs to happen there. So we have had a couple sessions, and we've gone through a number of the elementary schools, and we have another one scheduled, I believe. So it 22 buildings and over 1 million square feet. It takes a while to review that really fine-grained item by item review of the district. So that's what we're doing at the moment. And at OACM, we'll dive into a couple of the elementary schools. We've identified Northeast and Fall Creek as a couple of the schools that we want to review in a little more detail, just as a sort of an ongoing refresher of, just another effort to sort of flesh out some requests and start to get them on a list so we can plan. That's really what all this is about, is to try to flesh out those ideas. And as we, think about phase 4, we're not even so much into phase 3, but we're already collecting ideas for phase 4 so that we can get ahead of that and anticipate when that work can occur, and plan for it, even if it's a couple years out at this point.
Thanks, Chris. And just, there's also the piece about work orders and response and how to be efficient in our management of our day-to-day. And Bob, you want to touch base on that, or someone?
Looks like Bob is frozen, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking perhaps he was.
Yeah.
But
Or else he's
we have a contract with.
There he is. There's Bob. There's
Okay,
Bob.
there's Bob.
You were all frozen. I was talking along just fine, but anyways, I think the work order system is getting better. We're making advances on that, but really more broadly, the whole system and what WCS is looking at is so it's a lot like what Chris has been doing. There's a huge amount of data gathering and information gathering from Ken at this point. I think we're reaching the point now of like, all right, we've got a lot of data now. What are we going to do? How are we going to move forward on systems building? I would imagine that would start in earnest right after Thanksgiving break. And kudos to Dan, who's been fantastic working with Ken on many projects. I take Ken on other projects, so it's really been great having Dan help on this. Thank you, Dan.
No, it's great. No, I just thought this is top of mind for many. I just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to touch base since we seem to have time. And we'll go ahead and get ready for our special voting meeting in a minute. Anything else, Sean? Thanks, Eldred, for your input. Dr. Brown, anything before we take a quick break and do another meeting? Amanda?
Dr. Brown, you got something? I didn't want to interrupt.
No, I have
Okay.
quite a bit for the next meeting. We good.
Great. My only mention is for the December meeting. I'm not sure how long we'll need for executive session. I'm thinking it's probably gonna, be a quality conversation. And so I just wanted to let folks know that it's not that there's a lull, because there's always something happening with the capital project, but I think that spending time together in an executive session in December, and maybe having a brief agenda for the public session in terms of just, Cindy maybe doing the updates as to where we are specifically around the pool, right? And your call, that would be, I think, important. But there won't be very much, I think, new design work within a month, Chris, right, to share. So it'll just be a modified, maybe streamlined agenda with more focus on that executive session.
Okay. And we don't often have exec sessions in facilities, so this will, but we will expect to have one in December to talk about items that we will need to talk about. Okay, all right. Okay, very good. If everyone's good, we can let everybody go, and we'll hop on a regular meeting, well, the special voting meeting, and just at 6:15. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Chris, Cindy, Kim, everybody.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. See everyone later.